Have you ever noticed how quickly admiration can turn into resentment? Why a friend who once supported you suddenly pulls away? Or why a colleague who praised you yesterday begins to undermine you today? And perhaps most unsettling, why hostility often arrives without explanation, as if you had triggered something invisible in others. In this video, we'll explore the hidden psychological and social forces behind these shifts. We'll draw from Carl Jung's theory of the shadow, modern research on projection envy and social power dynamics, and the disruptive role of authenticity. By the end, you'll see why people may suddenly begin to hate you even when you've done nothing wrong, and why their reaction often says more about them than about you. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the Jung Psychiatric channel, where you'll get early access to new videos and insights on personal and spiritual growth. Now, let's get started. We often believe that when people turn against us, it must be because of something we said or did. This is why rejection and hostility feel so personal, because we instinctively take them as evidence of our own failure. But the truth is that much of what others project onto us has very little to do with our actual behavior. By understanding the hidden forces at play, you free yourself from the burden of constant self-blame. You begin to see that hostility is not always a verdict on your character, but often a reflection of someone else's inner struggle. Carl Jung described the shadow as the unconscious container of everything a person rejects about themselves: repressed emotions, forbidden desires, and unresolved shame. The shadow never disappears. It shapes how we see others, often without us realizing it. This is why your presence can feel threatening. If you embody traits someone has buried: confidence, kindness, independence, you awaken their shadow. They don't experience you as you are. They experience the reflection of what they cannot accept in themselves. Jung warned that without awareness, the shadow is projected outward, turning others into enemies. Hatred in this sense is often nothing more than a mirror of what someone refuses to face within. Projection is how the shadow escapes into the world. Jung argued that when people cannot face certain qualities in themselves, they unconsciously see those qualities in others. Modern psychology recognizes projection as a defense mechanism that protects the ego from painful truths. The person who calls you arrogant may be hiding their own need for recognition. The colleague who resents your ambition may be wrestling with their own wasted potential. And once projection takes hold, hostility feels justified even if it has nothing to do with you. This is why hatred can feel so sudden. It is not about your actions. It is about their inner conflict displaced onto you. Recognizing this frees you from internalizing blame. Think of how this plays out in everyday life. At work, you might notice a colleague subtly undermining your efforts. Not because your performance threatens the company, but because it threatens the image they hold of themselves. In friendships, someone might grow distant when you start making progress in areas where they feel stuck. These reactions feel confusing until you recognize them for what they are: projections of frustration and insecurity. Once you see this clearly, you no longer confuse someone's resentment with evidence that you've done something wrong. Every relationship contains invisible hierarchies: who leads, who follows, who validates, who seeks validation. These dynamics are rarely spoken about, but they quietly shape behavior. When you grow by setting boundaries, by succeeding, or by stepping outside an assigned role, the balance shifts. The friend who relied on your compliance may now resent your independence. The colleague who felt superior may feel diminished by your success. Even family members may resist your growth if it unsettles the roles they depend on. As sociologist Pierre Bourdieu showed, people constantly negotiate status and recognition. When that balance is disrupted, resentment often follows. The hostility you encounter is rarely about your choices themselves, but about what those choices represent in the silent hierarchy. Envy is one of the strongest fuels for hidden hostility. Unlike anger, it rarely announces itself. It hides in silence, in subtle withdrawal, in the sudden absence of support. Research by Smith and Kim in 2007 defines envy as both the painful awareness of another's advantage and the desire to reduce it. Envy often arises most among those closest to us. A stranger may admire your success, but a friend may feel it as a personal threat. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your freedom exposes their fear, and rather than using that discomfort to grow, they retreat into quiet resentment. This is why admiration so easily turns into rivalry. The same person who once celebrated your victories may now downplay them or dismiss them. Envy corrodes trust, silently poisoning relationships until they fracture. Before we continue, if this video is giving you a new perspective on why people sometimes turn against you, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear this message. And if you'd like to support thoughtful content like this, you can use the thanks button below. Your support truly makes a difference. Now let's move forward. Perhaps the greatest trigger of all is authenticity. To live authentically is to align your life with your values, to drop the masks that win approval but suffocate the self. Research in personality and social psychology review Cernes and Goldman 2006 shows authenticity strongly correlates with well-being, but it also disrupts illusions. Most people depend on roles and masks to protect fragile identities. When you live authentically, you destabilize those masks. You remind others of the compromises they've made, the truths they've silenced, and the dreams they abandoned. That's why authenticity provokes resistance. Some will accuse you of arrogance or selfishness, not because you embody those traits, but because your authenticity exposes their inauthenticity. Yet authenticity is also contagious. While it awakens hostility, it also awakens longing. Even those who resent you may secretly admire your freedom. So why do people suddenly start hating you? Often it is not about who you are, but about what you awaken in them. You remind them of their shadow. You disrupt their hidden hierarchies. Your success stirs envy and your authenticity threatens their illusions. Carl Jung once wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." When you see hostility for what it truly is, a projection of inner battles, you gain freedom. You stop shrinking to fit illusions. You stop blaming yourself for the wars others are fighting in silence. And most importantly, you continue living authentically even when it unsettles others. Because the greatest threat you pose is not your mistakes, but your truth. And truth once embodied has the power to transform not only you but also those who resist you the most. If this video gave you a new way of seeing things, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you want more insights like this, don't forget to subscribe to Mental Dose. There's much more to come.